Under the dim lights of the UFC apex, where every strike echoes through the silent anticipation of the crowd, a storm has been brewing, a relentless force that few have truly recognized. Gregory Rodriguez, the man they call RoboCop, is not just another fighter looking to carve his name into the history books. He is a destroyer, a man whose fists carry the weight of a nation's fighting spirit, whose determination has been forged in the fires of struggle, loss, and resurgence. Standing at 6 feet 3 inches, towering over many in the middleweight division, Rodriguez moves with an ominous presence, his physique sculpted by years of dedication and hardship. The octagon has seen many warriors, but few possess the combination of raw power and calculated violence that define G-Rod. As he prepares for the biggest fight of his career, a showdown with the ferocious Jared Cannonier, Rodriguez stands on the precipice of greatness. This is his moment, a chance to ascend from the shadows and finally claim the recognition that has eluded him for so long. Born in Brazil, a land where combat sports are woven into the cultural fabric, Rodriguez's journey to this defining night was anything but smooth. His path was marred by the sting of early losses, moments where the dreams seemed distant, just beyond his grasp. Many had written him off when he stumbled in his UFC career, doubting whether he had what it took to rise among the elite. But for Rodriguez, defeat was never a dead end, it was fuel. Every setback, every loss, every moment of doubt became a stepping stone towards something greater. With a professional record of 16-5-0, Rodriguez has painted his legacy in blood and sweat. A veteran of the fight game, he has amassed 9 brutal knockouts, 4 technical submissions, and 3 grueling decision victories, each one a testament to his evolving skill set and indomitable spirit. His entry into the UFC in 2021 was not heralded with grandeur, but those who had witnessed his work in LFA knew what was coming. He had clinched the LFA middleweight belt in spectacular fashion, sending Josh Fremd crashing to the canvas with a knockout that sent shockwaves through the MMA world. The UFC took notice, and soon the gates of the world's premier fighting organization opened for him. In his debut, Rodriguez faced Dusko Todorovic, a battle-hardened warrior known for pushing opponents to their limits. Rodriguez answered the call with a decision victory, a hard-fought war that set the stage for his next conquest. Against Jun Yong Park, Rodriguez's fists told the story, a thunderous knockout that signaled to the division that a new predator had arrived. But fate is seldom kind in the fight game. Just as his momentum built, a split decision loss to Armen Petrosyan threatened to derail his climb. Controversial in its outcome, many believed Rodriguez had done enough to secure victory, but the judges saw otherwise. 10 of 14 media members scored the fight in his favor. 70% of fans watching at home agreed. Yet, the reality of MMA's unforgiving scorecards do not care for sentiment. But if there is one thing that defines Rodriguez, it is his ability to rise from the ashes. And rise he did. The war with Julian Marquez became an instant classic, a battle where Rodriguez unleashed a savage onslaught that earned him a Performance of the Night bonus. Against Chidi Njokuani, Rodriguez faced one of the most harrowing moments of his career. A devastating elbow split his forehead open, a cut so deep it exposed an artery, leaving blood streaming down his face in a grotesque display of violence. Any lesser fighter would have crumbled under the pain, under the sheer brutality of the moment. But Rodriguez is not just any fighter. With blood clouding his vision, he pressed forward, overwhelming Njokuani with relentless pressure, securing a TKO in the second round. In the aftermath, when reporters asked him about the gruesome injury, Rodriguez merely grinned and shrugged. "I have 3 eyebrows now," he joked. It was this unshakable mentality that made him terrifying, not just his power, not just his technique, but the unwavering belief that no amount of punishment could deter him. However, the fight game is a cruel mistress. Just when he seemed unstoppable, a newcomer by the name of Bruno Ferreira shocked the world, catching Rodriguez with a perfectly timed left hand, sending him crashing to the mat in the first round. It was a humbling moment, a reminder that in the UFC, Even the most seasoned warriors can fall in an instant. But that was the last time Rodriguez tasted defeat. What followed was a resurgence that cemented his status as one of the most dangerous men in the division. He rebounded with a vengeance, embarking on a 3-fight winning streak that led him to the doorstep of greatness. His most recent conquest was against Britain's rising star, Christian Leroy Duncan, at UFC 304. The oddsmakers saw it as an even contest. Rodriguez saw it as a mission. From the opening bell, he dismantled Duncan, methodically breaking him down over 3 relentless rounds. By the time the final horn sounded, Duncan was bloodied, battered, and thoroughly beaten. The judges had no doubt Rodriguez had dominated, earning a unanimous decision victory. His performances have not gone unnoticed. UFC CEO Dana White himself labeled Rodriguez's bout with Duncan a must-watch prelim, a signal that the organization was beginning to recognize the beast they had in their ranks. And now, Rodriguez steps onto the biggest stage of his life, standing across from the formidable Jared Cannonier, the 7th-ranked middleweight in the world. A win here changes everything. A victory would launch Rodriguez into the rankings, finally validating the years of struggle, the sacrifices, the blood spilled inside the octagon. And so, as fight night approaches, the air crackles with anticipation. The world may not fully grasp what is coming, but those who have followed Rodriguez's journey understand. He is not just here to win, he is here to make a statement, to force the world to take notice. He has been overlooked for too long, and now, with the biggest opportunity of his career at his fingertips, RoboCop is ready to unleash hell. As the sun dipped below the Las Vegas skyline, the energy inside the UFC apex was palpable. The air hummed with the low murmur of the crowd, a mix of eager fans and hardened fight analysts who had seen it all. But tonight felt different. Tonight, there was an electricity in the air, an unshakable sense that something brutal, something unforgettable, was about to unfold inside the octagon. And at the center of it all stood Gregory Rodriguez, RoboCop, a man on the precipice of greatness, his fists clenched, his breath slow and measured as he prepared to enter the biggest fight of his life. The stakes had never been higher. Across from him loomed Jared Cannonier, a veteran of the sport, a fighter known for his devastating power and calculated precision. Ranked 7th in the world, Cannonier had fought the best, had gone to war with former champions, and had established himself as one of the division's most formidable contenders. For Rodriguez, this was more than just a fight, it was a chance to force his way into the rankings, to shed the label of underrated and replace it with something undeniable, a true threat to the UFC middleweight throne. As the cage door swung shut behind him, Rodriguez felt a familiar calm wash over him. This was his world, his battleground. He had spilled blood on this canvas before, had stood toe-to-toe with men who sought to break him, and yet he remained. He had been underestimated, dismissed, but tonight, none of that mattered. The only thing that mattered now was the man in front of him, the test he had been preparing for his entire life. The bell rang, and the war began. Cannonier moved forward, his eyes locked onto Rodriguez like a predator sizing up its prey. He was fast, powerful, and precise, every feint a calculated attempt to draw a reaction, to find an opening. But Rodriguez didn't flinch. He had studied Cannonier, had seen the destruction he was capable of, and he knew that hesitation would be fatal. So he did what he always did, he pressed forward, undeterred, unshaken, a storm brewing behind his measured movements. The first exchange was a thunderclap of violence. Cannonier struck first, a sharp jab snapping Rodriguez's head back, followed by a low kick that sent shockwaves through his lead leg. The power was real, the threat undeniable. But Rodriguez had felt power before. He had stood inside the fire and emerged stronger. He answered with a right hand of his own, a sledgehammer of a punch that cracked against Cannonier's temple, momentarily stunning him. The crowd erupted. This was not going to be a slow, methodical chess match. This was going to be a war. Round 1 was a battle of attrition. Cannonier's speed and precision kept him dangerous, his combinations sharp and calculated, but Rodriguez's pressure was relentless. He marched forward, absorbing shots, returning fire with his own devastating blows. Every time Cannonier landed, Rodriguez answered, refusing to be outgunned. By the time the horn sounded, both men were breathing heavily, their faces marked by the damage they had inflicted upon each other. In the corner, Rodriguez sat, his coach speaking to him in rapid Portuguese, reminding him of the game plan. He nodded, his mind clear. He had felt Cannonier's power, had tasted the worst of what he had to offer, and yet, he was still standing. More than that, he was pushing forward. He knew what he had to do. Round 2 began, and Rodriguez came out with renewed fire. He feinted, baiting Cannonier into throwing, and when the veteran committed, Rodriguez countered with a monstrous right hand. The impact was immediate. Cannonier stumbled, his balance momentarily betraying him. The scent of victory filled Rodriguez's nostrils, and he surged forward, unloading a barrage of strikes that sent Cannonier reeling. The apex erupted as Rodriguez backed him against the cage, unleashing a devastating combination: hooks, elbows, knees, each one thrown with ruthless precision. But Cannonier was a survivor. He ducked, clinched, forced Rodriguez into a brief stalemate before finding an escape. Blood trickled down his face, his eyes burning with fury. He wasn't done. Not yet. Then came the moment that changed everything. Midway through the round, Rodriguez timed a perfect level change, dipping under one of Cannonier's wild swings and securing a thunderous takedown. The canvas shuddered as both men hit the ground, but only Rodriguez remained in control. He moved like a man possessed, passing guard with ruthless efficiency, trapping Cannonier in a suffocating position. From there, the elbows rained down merciless, unrelenting. The first few strikes dazed Cannonier, but the next ones carved into him like blades. The referee hovered nearby, watching closely, ready to intervene. Cannonier struggled, twisting, trying to shake Rodriguez off, but the Brazilian's grip was iron. Another elbow landed, then another. The referee had seen enough. He stepped in, pulling Rodriguez away just as Cannonier slumped, beaten, bloodied, defeated. For a moment, there was silence. Then, the realization hit. The crowd erupted. The commentators shouted in disbelief. Gregory Rodriguez had done it. He had just dismantled the number 7 ranked middleweight in the world. Rodriguez stood, his chest rising and falling with heavy breaths, his face a mix of exhaustion and triumph. He had come into this fight as an underdog, overlooked, doubted. But now, there was no denying him. He had forced the world to recognize his power, his resilience, his place among the best. As the referee raised his hand, the significance of the moment settled in. This wasn't just another win. This was a statement. Gregory Rodriguez was no longer a hidden gem, a fighter flying under the radar. He was a force. A nightmare for anyone who stood across from him. The octagon had a new contender. And the division had been put on notice. This was only the beginning.